Welcome everyone to another episode of Candid Coffee, How to Get Your First Board Seat. I'm your host, Cameron Clark. And today I have with me none other than Archita Fritz. Welcome to the show, Archita.
Glad to be here, Cam. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. So you've built something rare, which is a portfolio of board roles across Europe, North America, and now I know Jamaica.
Yes.
And we were talking about that one, which is something you hold near and dear to your hearts. So you want to give that a quick plug?
Yeah. So first of all, folks, if you're listening, Jamaica just went through a really, really devastating natural disaster with Hurricane Melissa. So I'll actually share some links to support rebuilding. Like people are really rebuilding homes. The government is doing a lot, but individuals are putting in their own money for zinc, cement, and things like that. And so one of my nonprofits there that I'm on the board of, and I have the privilege to be on the board of, is based in Jamaica, and it's called Grace to Grow. And the focus of the nonprofit is on helping get women a second chance who have gone through some particular hardships, giving them and showing them a path to having a second chance so that they either build a new business, can help provide for their family, etc. And it's based in a bit of faith, a lot of faith, and a lot of the community coming together as well. So I'm grateful to be a part of that board.
Yeah, I love that. And that's going to be extremely important as Jamaica rebuilds, because that's going to power their economic engine, enabling women to be able to provide not only for themselves, but for their families. And as you know, that'll spread throughout the community. So everyone, please check that out and donate. But back to the point of this show, let's start with what everyone always wants to know. You just land your first board seat. You created your way into it. How did that happen?
Yes. I think I've shared this story a few times. If you've been on any of the webinars or other things, forgive me for this, but for those who are listening for the first time, a lot of things in my life, being a first, the only, have been with me having to create it. No one ever just tapped me on the shoulder and was like, here you go, Archita, you'd be perfect for this job. Usually people would be like, what do we do with her? Or like, what is she doing here? Literally, I had a manager once write on a piece of paper. I was the first engineer who was hired into marketing in this division. And he'd come by my desk every morning and leave a Post-it that would say, what are you doing here? Like, this is the vice president. And he thought it was
incredible.
funny. It was not funny, so I kind of have lived my entire life, or most of my entire life, with that kind of knowing that if I don't create my own opportunity, no one's going to hand it to me. And so when on a random March afternoon in 2024, when one of my clients was like, hey, you were talking about potentially looking at building a board career, I heard about this webinar, you should check it out. I was like, okay, I'll go give it a whirl. And that was one of Callum's webinars, actually. And I shared this, I joined, and I was 100% convinced there were bots on there because there were 1,000+ people. I'm like, who the heck in this day and age has 1,000+ people? And so I started listening, and I was like, my goodness, these are real human beings who have shaped their own path into the boardroom, not waiting for opportunity, to kind of, give them that handed on a silver platter. And I immediately gravitated towards that thinking because it resonated with my life, right? And so I ended up stepping into the program, but more importantly, into the philosophy of doing the same for my board career as well. And one of the things we talk about is, your first board role, I spent 17 years in med device. And so, Callum talks about it, others talk about it. Let it not be in the industry that you're an expert in, because then you go into operator mode because you're just like, yep, I know everything. And it seems contrary to every single thing that's out there, right? Because everyone, when you look at board positions of a publicly listed company, which makes sense, they're looking for people with certain kinds of criteria. But you're going after your first board role. So you could have done Deloitte's training. You could have been a certified board member. You could have had all of that. But if you're going to go into your first board role, especially as someone who's mid to late mid-career, I would say hit subscribe on joining a board wherein you have cross-functional expertise, like skills expertise, like say for me, it's go-to-market, commercialization, strategy, leadership. But it was for a supply chain, AI, SaaS solution startup, actually. And so I raised my hand and I was like, hey, I'd love to be a part of, this growth story of yours. And I was terrified, honestly, because inside I was like, crap, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Am I going to add value? But the minute I started my interview, I started talking, it was so clear, like I could add so much value and I could help them in significant ways, even though I didn't know the industry. So lean into your expertise, be confident that you have that expertise, and then find companies that need that expertise irrespective of industry. So I'm not saying this is how you land your first publicly held board seat, because that would be stupid of me to do that. I'm saying your first board seat. So I really want to clarify that.
I love that. You shared so much there. I want to unpack some of it.
Yes, please. My lovely neurodivergence. I have to learn to simplify someday.
No, don't ever apologize for that. That is a superpower. Trust me, I know. So when you started in your career, right? You were the first. You shared that's been a theme throughout not only your career but your life. I can relate to that. As you know, I'm in the U.S., right? And so that is a big theme here. It's a hot button topic about things being handed to people. And that is, it's a myth, downright a myth, right? Because, yes, there are programs that exist to help people succeed, but, there are still people implementing those programs, right? And people are people, right? There's nothing automatic about it. And so, yeah, you can take hold of those programs, if it applies to your situation. I'm not saying it applies to yours at all. But once you're there, right, you're subject to the environment, right? You have to sink or swim, right? And no one's going to hold your hand, throw your life vest, right? You have to perform, right? That's the surest way to win, succeed at anything, no matter who you are, is to perform and add value. And that's something that you said repeatedly in your answer to me. The other thing you talked about was, you raised your hand. You weren't sure that you could add value to something that you had no exposure or experience to. And that is the great thing to do, not only for getting your first board seat, but, just doing new things in life, right? Yes. Is this, hey, I'm interested.
Yes.
I am interested.
I'm here.
I don't I don't know how I'm going to do this, but, try me out. And,
yes.
And you did that. And once you got in there, you said, oh, okay, I see how I fit here, right? And it's that little, start of courage that gets you in the door, and you listened to what the problems were, or what the needs were, and said, hey, I see how I can apply some of my knowledge, skills, and experience here. And so those are the things that made you succeed, right? You always got to start with courage. Yeah. Things are going to be new. Things are going to be difficult. No one's going to hold your hand. But you're interested. You want to do well, and you just go forward, right? Like you said, you hit subscribe.
Yes, you hit like oversubscribe to it because you're getting started. You're getting started, and it doesn't matter if you're getting started at 30 towards a board career, or you're like, okay, I'm like 61 and now I need to start. It doesn't matter when. The reality is that if you're getting started, you're going to have some angst, no matter how much exposure you've had to a board. I used to present to boards, but it's completely flipped. Like when I'm on this side, I actually just submitted this morning my first board assessment after my completion on a supervisory board. We did a self-assessment as a board member, and I was just like noodling on one. They had like really good questions, and one of them was around just like on a scale of 1 to 5, how effective of a board member are you? And I was like, dang, I've only been here for 6 months, but I think I was pretty good. I give myself a 5. And then I was like, hold on. And so then I like reassessed, right? But it's so, and this is a board again, that it's a supervisory board role. It's my first paid board role actually that I got. And I know nothing about this industry. I'm the only person on the board, actually the second person. The other person has been around for 4 years now, so now has like expertise, but I'm the more recent only person that has no expertise in the industry, but they needed someone with my, again, skills, like with regards to like go to market, entering new markets, etc. So I stepped in, but I've been able to add a lot of value. But even there, Cam, if I had not raised my hand and said, hey, and during the interview, you mentioned about, in the US, you have affirmative action, you have everything, all of
Mm,
that for a reason. I'm not going to go into systemic inequality and all of that jazz right now, but we can have another podcast on it. I'd be happy to talk
yeah,
about it in detail. But that's the other initiative that I appreciate about Webland, right? We're trying to get
mm,
voices at the table that not normally are invited to the table
right.
as well, right? And so we're trying to level the playing field. And so my interview with this supervisory board, the CEO asked me, Archita, what if I told you the only reason you got this interview is because actually it was the deputy CEO, it doesn't matter, it was a woman, and she asked me purposely, and it was very good intention. If the only reason you got an invite to interview for this position is because you're a woman from the global south, okay,
Mm,
and I was like, what the, in my head, but I was just like, okay. So I was like, listen, it doesn't matter why you invited me to the table, I'm here and I know the value I'm going to add, and that's why you need to keep me at this table. Literally, that was my answer. I did not elaborate more, I did not explain myself more, because
mm,
all of us who have been the first, the few, the only, in some way shape or form, have heard something like this
right.
in our life. And we
Mm,
know we have worked 10 times harder,
mhm,
done a lot more to even get invited to open the door and peek inside, you know. Um, and so she shared that, and I shared this for that reason, is that yes, I got invited. Yes, I had to do well in the interview, right? Because there were 60 plus applicants. But then once I got on the board, I had to add value, like a lot more right away.
mhm,
That question is playing like, nonstop in my head too,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I also have to balance it with like not trying to, use performance as a mask, like over performance as a mask, which I
Mm,
have all my life, uh, to prove something. Because once you're on a board, you have nothing, you don't have to outprove another board member.
mhm,
And that's something I always like give folks as like direction, is like you're there to lead from your value, not like the employee mindset, which is like, oh, we have a performance review, I need to be like, highly effective or whatever,
right.
exceptional or whatever. So I again shared a few different things there, but if I would like kind of distill it, is that there will be fear, let courage like kind
Mm,
of lead you through that fear. You will be challenged when you're the first, the few, the only, but
mm,
show up and speak up like in spite of it.
mm,
And then once you're there, you will like outperform a lot of different folks. But in a board role, don't use that performance as as a mask to burn out. When you're there as an equal. You've earned your seat right now,
right.
so don't need to go burn yourself out to prove why you still deserve that seat.
Yeah, exactly. I love all of that. Um, One thing you said that caught my attention was that well, it's really all of it, right? You have to have courage to raise your hand, and then what's the worst that can happen, right?
Yes.
You don't get the role. Okay, so what, right? You go on to the next thing. There's no repercussions for any of it, and staying true to yourself, right? As you did in that interview, even when she asked you that question, because that would take anyone aback.
Mm.
Um, but you had the poise to understand, or maybe not at the time, but understand not where she was coming from, but why you were there and what value you could bring.
Yeah.
And you're going to answer this question regardless of your background, right?
Yes.
Um, you're there because you earned the right to be there and you have value.
Yes.
So you always need to stand in your truth is and
Yes.
not let anyone rattle you. But I'm going
Yes.
to take it back a little bit.
Yes.
You've obviously achieved a lot, but why did you decide to go down this path in the first place?
Yeah, so as I said, like I've lived my life, always looking at performance as a sport, basically. So in India, I grew up in India. So I spent the first 17 years of my life, like where I'm from, like in India. And in India, you're like, education is a sport. So it's not like, you don't get to go do football as a sport. I mean, you do, but that was not in my home and most homes in India, because when you come to 10th grade and you're taking your exams, you're not taking exams with 1,000 people or 100,000 people. You're taking your exams with millions of people, and if you're not in the top 1,000 out of millions of people, you end up in like what your parents would say is not the best school, right? So parents like really push you to like right from the beginning, like education is looked at as sports, so therefore performance towards your education is looked at a sport, right? So I'm working on unlearning a lot of that. But about 2 years ago, it's about 2.5 years ago, I went out on my own after spending like 18 years in corporate, and I started my own portfolio career. And I started building like my fractional practice. And while I was building my practice, where I step in and I help companies with their growth, I was looking out 20 years from now, right? And I was like, okay, what would this impact look like beyond just this like one-on-one support, etc.? What would larger impact look like across industries? And then I was like, okay, that could be board work, right? Like working with boards, helping change leadership and teams and industries, etc. And I was looking up average age, and the average age of a board member in the US at least was 61 years, right? And white and male. And so I was like, okay, I could get like a 20 plus year head start. Like that's not bad. And I was not even thinking head start. It was more about I'm curious, quite frankly, and it was in a coffee shop with my sister. She's like the most organized person on planet Earth. So she was organizing my planning, as I was trying to like unlearn my performance kind of mindset of like, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, to like, okay, I have some goals, but what are some of the things I want to learn to get better at outside of just goals? Like I never set a goal for boards being like, I have to do this by this time or anything. I just said I'm going to do what a good marketer would do. I'll go to voice of customer to understand how do you start your board journey to drive better impact. And it would be great to try to put it into practice by the end of the year by sitting on one advisory board. That was kind of like literally what I put in an Excel spreadsheet. That's it. And then, it was 6 boards later. And like, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Now I'm like, no, I'm not getting on another board. I'm good. But no, so that's kind of how it started, was curiosity. It's like, okay, let me learn, and what could my longer term impact look like as I'm building my portfolio career.
I love that. So you really just opened yourself up to the idea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have any idea really about how to go about it. You just said, let me start small.
Yes. I mean, I just had a bunch
and maybe in 20 years I'll get it.
Yeah. I mean, it was not even, my mind can't even think 20 years, right? So I was just like, okay, that's the average age. Like, it doesn't hurt to start now, like to learn. And then, of course, I mean, there are so many folks who are a lot younger, who are on large publicly held company boards with because they've had C-suite roles, they've done amazing work. And I was not competing against anything. I was curious. And I had a lot of peers who had done a lot of these certification programs, but they were executives in companies. They'd not really done actual board work. And I'm someone who likes to like, I'm an activator. So I like to get into like doing versus just talking about doing it, And so that's what kind of was the impetus to start exploring.
Action trumps planning, right?
Yes.
It's not to say that you don't need to plan, but action trumps planning.
Yes.
And everyone's starting point is different, right? Everyone's platform is different, right?
Yes.
Because of things that you can't control, right? Like where you were born, who your parents were, what they achieved, and whatnot.
Yes.
And so you don't make excuses for any of that. You just say, this is where I am, and this is what I want. So figure out how to go from A to B. And your A to B is going to look different from everyone else's, but that's okay, right?
Yes.
As long as you know what it is, and you just keep putting one foot in front of the next, you'll get there. So I love that. That it's all very powerful stuff. So I want to shift the audience for a moment because your advice is extremely tactical. And if someone is watching this and feels ready for their first board role, what would you tell them?
So what would I tell someone who feels ready for their first board role? What are you waiting for? Like, go get it. Like, don't feel ready. I would actually go one step further. Like, don't wait to feel ready. for something you want to get better at, you want to learn more about, one that you know in your heart of hearts,
Mm-hmm.
I have so much to offer. So you have like
Mm-hmm.
5+ years of I mean, anybody with any kind of experience can add so much value to anyone's life, right? But say if you're 5-10 years into a company or a job or like learning or expertise or whatever in your industry, you could add so much value to like startups, scale ups, even large companies, quite frankly. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was keynoting for early talent leaders across Fortune 50 and Fortune 500 last week, and we had a panel on Gen Z. Oh my gosh. I just sat there in awe at how brilliant these managers, they're all Gen Z, they're leading like teams in their companies right now, how they're thinking, how they're building. And, out of all of the ridiculous stereotypes we hear, like all generations have had their stereotypes,
Yeah.
right? But I feel like with Gen Z, it feels like just because of social media and everything else, we get it, it's even louder. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just so brilliant and it's so much to offer. And I was having a chat with one of those Gen Z leaders, and I was like, you could be on a board today. Like you should be on a board today because of she built in a really large company a early talent program from the ground up, like soup to nuts, everything, right? And I'm like, there could be so many other companies that could benefit from this that don't know, with leadership transitions and things like that.
Right.
So I'd say that if you have an ambition, don't chase board roles to be like, I want to replace my income. Like that is a terrible place to start. Now,
Right.
unless you've been a C-suite leader in a company and you start putting your name out there, you start networking, and
Mm-hmm.
then you'll open some doors and people will be willing. It'll take longer, but you'll get some conversations. But if you've not been a C-suite leader at a larger company or a mid-sized company, or even in like the startup world where you've done something like incredible, where people are just like, holy crap, just naturally asking you to be on their board, you've
Mm-hmm.
still done things of value. I want to first give you credence to that. You've still done things of value, and you're like, I want to add more value and drive more impact. What might that look like? Go start. And I've shared this in a few places. There's a resource called micromentor.org. It's a great place to start. Volunteermatch.org. There are so many founders there who just need advice. They don't know where to turn to. It's pro bono, of course, but it starts exercising your muscles in your mind of how you talk and how you
Right.
share advice outside of like, I recommend you do this. That's not board, that's not a
No.
board advice, right? It's questions that you ask that would
Mm-hmm.
help them think about what to do. Because I can tell you, like, having sat in a few board meetings, the management teams hate when the board is like, I think the C-suite should, and I've heard this happened earlier this year. One of the board members said, well, I think, the management team should do this. And the CEO immediately is like, oh, no, we'll decide when we do this. And then everyone's like, oh, no, we agree. So you don't want to be that person, but we're so, if you've been an operator, no matter how senior of a leader you've been in an organization, even at an SVP level, a president level, etc., you're still an operator in a large functioning machine. And so you've got to switch to start thinking like a board member. And these are some great places to start. Or like, Veblen, for instance, as well, or Boardio, and whatever places where you start exercising the language of how
Yeah.
you turn operative behavior into insights that can help the team think for themselves.
Yeah. So those are great resources. Micromentor.com, and what was the
Or
other one? Or
volunteer match,
Volunteer Match.
yes. And then, of course, Veblen, Boardio, lots of
Right.
opportunities.
Right. I like those. And I might even check them out myself. But
Please.
so the thing you said in response to my question was, don't start with readiness, start with desire, right?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for
Take action.
yes. Start with desire and then take action.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that. I love that. And you keyed in on a question I didn't ask, but is important, in that as a board member, you are not going in there to solve the organization's problems or tell them what to do. Your job is to ask smart questions to uncover problems, information, and thought process.
Yes. Gosh, you said that way more eloquently than I put it. Yes, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yes.
Very cool. All right. Um, So what are you currently focused on? You have 6 board seats. You don't, obviously bandwidth is limited.
Yes, so I actually stepped away from a board that was not aligned. So I really want to share this too. So just because you joined, and this was a board seat I created for myself. So I was interviewing somebody from my podcast, found out that they're sitting on a board that is, femtech, female founder,
Mm,
in my backyard, like
yeah,
everything that are it's completely mission, vision, all of it aligned. And so I was like,
yeah,
oh, I'd love an intro. Would you be open to making an introduction? Because I'd love to see how I might be able to add value. That was how I made the intro. I didn't say I want a board seat. I just said that, would you be open? And she's like, yes, absolutely. And so then I had a chat with the co-founders and was super excited about their mission and vision. Actually brought in another Veblen member because I noticed like in the first couple of weeks that there was a gap with something that they were trying to build and develop. And there was really good expertise with someone within Veblen. Brought them on board, and it was a paid board role. Yes.
mhm,
And helped them raise some money, but realized very quickly, and this was such a hard decision to make because in my entire life, I was, made to believe that you don't give up on something, just keep at it.
right,
Like, come on, just
right,
keep at it. Like, no matter what, keep at it. But I've learned enough as I've grown older. Like, you don't just keep at things at the cost of your mental health, at the cost of like your nervous system not getting a chance to kind of be settled at the end of the night.
mhm,
And there was room for opportunity, with regards to how the team led, and we gave a lot of feedback, etc. They're still doing amazing things, but it was just not aligned. Where but I, when I was telling my Veblen team, and my team is like, Archita, my accountability group, they're like, the answer already, and that that's going to be a difficult conversation, and the biggest growth is going to come from those difficult conversations.
mhm,
I'm so glad I heard that out loud from the group, because then I did have the conversation. I walked away from a paid board role, um, and I know now what kind of boards my nervous system is not best suited for, you know and that's also a good thing, right? I would
yeah,
not know unless I had had this opportunity to kind of go through this journey and like build things, right? So I'm sitting on them. I completed a tenure on the Veblen board. Like, I was the chairwoman of the board. That was my first learning experience. I'm chairing a board as well. And so I sit on like 5 at the moment. I don't have any bandwidth for any more advice. I don't do any advisory board roles anymore, or non-exec
mm,
board roles. So I'm really very focused right now on board observer roles or advisory board roles for private equity backed companies, or river guides as they call them.
mhm,
I do a lot of fractional work wherein I step in as a fractional, like, chief marketing officer to mid-market private equity firms. That's like my main kind of focus, to help their value creation teams and their operating partners to unlock like growth potential in 1 to 3 years, or that 5 to 7 year clip when they're getting ready to like have their next strategic like action. And in there, I've seen operating partners sitting on 7 or 8 boards.
mm,
That's a lot to kind of manage and like add value, etc. So
yeah,
my goal is, how could I step in and be like a board observer to support those operating partners, having been on the other side and been on this side, but just not in private equity, like on
mm,
both sides of the table, to help kind of shape um, you know better governance there and better support for those management teams globally. So that's kind of where my focus is at the moment, outside of continuing to build uh,
mm.
my go to market kind of private equity support that I'm doing.
Amazing. So what I keyed in on is that you're constantly growing, right? Because you had you created a board role for yourself. Everything was in alignment. Check, 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 check. You get in there and you say, "Oh, this is great. I'm going to bring somebody else along, phone a
Yes.
friend, if you will."
Yes.
And things are, I guess, maybe going well for the business, or maybe for the other person that you brought on, but something wasn't sitting right with you. You recognize that within yourself. You chatted about it with your advisory group, accountability group rather,
Yeah.
and they recognized that things were off and said, "You know what to do. Make the decision." Right. And so you had to do a gut check and
Yes.
said, "Do I really want to make this decision? Do I really want to have this conversation? Because
Yeah.
I created this for myself. It's paid. It's supposed
Yes.
to work out."
Yes. I was just like, what the heck? Like, figured it out. I think it took me a month of dragging my feet to finally my soul, quite frankly, to
Mhm.
finally then make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I thank you for sharing that story, because things aren't always greener on the other side, right? Um, Archita, this has been an amazing conversation. You've been very insightful and candid, which is why we call the show Candid Coffee. There's so many gems to choose from, whether you're just starting your journey or just before starting your journey or on your journey. And I'm willing to bet that even seasoned board members, those that are on publicly listed company boards, can learn from this as well. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. It's a reminder that board work it isn't a destination, right? It's a way of thinking, leading, and adding value at higher altitudes. Um, so, for all those people that are just, have the eyeballs glued to the screen and listening to your story, where can they find you and follow your work?
So I have a potentially like problematic relationship with LinkedIn. So I'm there a lot. So feel free to find me on LinkedIn. Honestly, LinkedIn DMs are the best place to get a hold of me. So reach out, check out. I mean, I share 4 to 5 days a week a lot of content along the journey of like leadership, go to market, growth, board work, etc. You could find me there. And if you choose to kind of really take action on like your desire, you can join me in Veblen, and join that journey there too. And I look forward to supporting your journey, irrespective of where and how the path leads you.
Great, great. We'll link everything in the show notes to our viewers. If you're navigating your own board journey, we talked a lot about community. It tends to be a theme on this podcast. Veblen Directors Program is one of the strongest communities you can plug into. So thank you again for joining us on Candid Coffee. Until next time.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.